welcome to another episode of Practical Penmanship. Today, we'll be taking a look at some budget-oriented fountain pens. Whether you're a beginner or someone looking for an inexpensive fountain pen, the pen you choose will have a significant impact on your experience, and it's important to find what's most suited to your needs. Factors such as size, weight, and the qualities of the nib are things to consider. Right now, we'll take a brief look at the measurements and weights the pen's tested, and then we'll go over the specific characteristics as we finish off with the writing sample. The first pen we have is the Esterbrook J. Now this may seem like a bit of an odd choice because it's a vintage pen, and you're right, it is an odd choice. In fact, I would not recommend this pen to a total beginner as a first pen, but I would recommend it to someone a little bit further along in their journey because of its availability, affordability for a restored one, combined with swappable nibs that can be bought new in stock, and a rather attractive cellular construction, which makes them a spectacular and unique choice. If you're feeling adventurous, this will make an excellent introduction to vintage pen restoration. Taking a look at design, this is a rather small, lightweight pen with a screw cap and a lever filler. How this lever filler works is that you lift this lever here, which depresses a J bar on the inside and compresses a latex sac, which creates a vacuum and sucks up the ink. Now, this is the largest of the three Esterbrook J models, at least the common ones, and I find it a rather comfortable size. There is a taper here at this section, which I do not like, but I don't mind holding it at the threads. The other two Esterbrook's, the LJ, which is slightly slimmer, and the SJ, which is slimmer and shorter, have the same lever filling mechanisms, and in fact they use the same size latex sac, which is one of the things you need to look out for if you're going to restore a pen. Next up is the Faber-Castell Loom, which is a pen I did a review of a little while ago, and one I find myself using quite often. Looking at the construction of the pen, you'll see this durable, lightweight, injection molded plastic cap with this metal liner. The clip is a spring-loaded metal clip that does a very good job at clipping onto thicker garments such as jeans. Uncapping the pen, which takes a little bit of force, you'll see this smoothly contoured metal section and straight aluminum barrel, which add quite a bit of heft to the pen. These metal rings aid in grip. I find this a rather comfortable pen, posted or unposted, due to the section's girth. This is a cartridge converter pen, although I don't find that the converter fits quite as well as some other pens. Moving on to the Kaweco Sport, and the first thing you'll notice is its diminutive stature. Although this is not a large pen, when posted, it actually turns into a rather decently sized pen, and I find this actually very comfortable in my hand due to its very light weight. That light weight is achieved due to this plastic construction, which, although it is prone to scratches, as you can see, it is very durable and very shock resistant. The pen is a cartridge converter pen, which can also be eyedroppered, although it's really more of a cartridge or eyedropper pen, since the only converters that you can use for this are small and insubstantial. Now we have three Lamy pens. Starting in alphabetical order, this is the Lamy ABC, the All-Star, and the Safari. Taking a look at the ABC, you can see the Maplewood barrel, which is over this plastic liner. The overall construction of the pen is very chunky, with this thick ABS plastic cap, which has this interesting flat side which helps it not roll away on the desk. The section has these little indents similar to the Safari, which are meant to help young children align their grip so that they can write properly. This is a quite chunky pen in the hand, and it does not post. I do like the lightweight, and I think that balance is quite good. Certainly, I think some of you may prefer this grip section over the Safari. Taking a look at the All-Star, which is the Safari stablemate, you'll see a much more pronounced flared section. It's quite a bit longer and thinner. All three of these pens are cartridge converter pens that take Lamy's proprietary system. Now, the Safari and the All-Star are very similar, except for that the All-Star has this thin metal covering on both the cap and this barrel. One thing that is a little bit different is that the edges on the All-Star are just a little bit smoother, and the All-Star is just a little bit wider and a little bit longer. I find both of these pens rather comfortable when they're uncapped, but I don't like posting either of them particularly because they are very long. Almost comically so, in fact. One difference, if you are going to post them, is where this cap ends. It's a little bit further back on the All-Star, which may or may not be a problem depending on your hand size. All three of these Lamy pens have exchangeable nibs, although with my Safari, I have seen the nib unit starts to come loose over time. With this Lamy ABC, you only have one choice of nib, which is this A nib, which I find comparable to a medium. Next, we have two pens from the Japanese manufacturer Pilot, the hotly contested Safari competitor, the Metropolitan, and the Plumix. Taking a look at the Metropolitan first, you'll see the brass barrel and cap, which add quite a bit of heft to the pen. In the middle is this plastic ring, which varies in pattern and color. We see a rather sturdy clip, which does a very good job at sliding onto different garments due to its shape. Uncapping the pen, you'll notice this smooth black section, and this rather aggressive step up to the barrel, which I really don't like. It's just something I find awkward and uncomfortable, and especially combined with the thin section and the heavy weight of the barrel, it makes this pen a little bit awkward to use. Posting the pen doesn't seem to have much of an effect either way. The nibs on both of these pens are actually interchangeable and are friction fit into the section, which means they remove by just pulling. Both of these pens take Pilot's proprietary cartridge converter system. The Plumix, which I've heard has a design kind of like a squid, is a very interestingly designed pen. Its lightweight plastic barrel has these interesting flares, which makes it look sort of like a glass dip pen. If we take a look at the cap, it has these weird roll stoppers, which I guess makes it look like a squid. And uncapping it, we see that uncommon for this category of pens is a screw cap. And this cap is also quite interesting. It's quite small, and it's kind of like the inner cap of most pens. That's both good and bad, because it makes it easier to lose. And as you can see, it gets ink stains in the cap. So if you're going to post this pen, you'll get ink on the back of your barrel and on your hands. On the plus side, it does make it very lightweight when posted and doesn't really add much length to the back of the pen. section has these facets again, like the Safari and the ABC, the All-Star included. I find this pen supremely comfortable in the hand due to its light weight and its exceptional balance. If we take a look at the nib, you can see it's a very similar design to the Metropolitan, and yes, they are swappable. However, the Plumix only comes in sub-nibs. Last but not least, except in price, is the Platinum Preppy. Now, since this is a rather cheap pen, it is going to be made of all plastic, including the clip. Although there is one really interesting design element to the Preppy, which is this slip and seal cap mechanism, which has a spring and helps the cap make an effective seal against the nib of this pen and keeps it from drying out capped for up to 2 years. This mechanism is also seen in the much higher end Platinum 3776 Century. If we take a look at this section of the pen, you'll see this flat, smooth section, which I find decently comfortable. This pen can also post, and when posted, I find it quite comfortable as well. If you see on the barrel, there is quite a bit of writing. Some of it is in Japanese, which I myself find quite cool. Preppy uses Platinum's proprietary cartridge converter system, although if you want to get a converter, it does cost about as much as the pen. The nib also has this interesting folded metal design, and quite short for a fountain pen. There's also no breather hole, but there is this circle. For the writing sample, I'll be using an A5 size Rhodia notebook. I forgot to mention that this particular Esterbrook has an extra fine nib. Also, these nib units screw out so you can swap them with other ones. This is a pen I restored myself, so as a general rule, the Esterbrook nibs have quite a bit of feedback, but they do write all the time. I have smoothed this one out myself though. I'll just leave it there for the sake of time. Now this is a very nice writer, and I said in my review that it sometimes had hard starts, but I'm going to blame that on the ink entirely, because with this Lamy turquoise, I haven't had any issues. Next up, we have our eyedroppered Kaweco Sport medium. The loom was also a medium, by the way. One thing I have to say about my Kawecos is that they had trouble writing when I first got them. Both of them had what's known as baby's bottom, which is the rounder inner time syndrome. What you find on a lot of pens when manufacturers want to make them smooth. Now we have our Lamy ABC with its A nib, which really means a medium, I think. This is a very smooth nib, perhaps a little bit on the dry side, which is something I actually like. And it doesn't have any issues with hard starts. Next up we have the Safari. Unfortunately, the All-Star is not inked. The qualities of the Safari nib are very similar to the ABC, consistent and smooth, things that I like. I don't know if you can see, but this pen has some issues with hard starting. I think this is also due to some baby's bottom. It's quite surprising, actually, from Pilot. They usually have a very good reputation for making good quality nibs. Certainly, I would say that the feed has no issues keeping up. Same feed is also utilized on this pen, which has no trouble writing for long periods of time. This is a nib that I really like. I like the subtle feedback that it gives, and I kind of like its dryness as well. I feel like it makes my handwriting a little bit better. There's no issues with hard starting or anything like that. Lastly, we have our Platinum Preppy, which is also having a hard start, which is unusual. I find that it takes a long while for ink to get into the feed, which I think that's what's causing these hard starts. But I think once ink finally saturates the feed, it will be fine. It is quite smooth, though. Actually quite impressive. This is a fine. I forgot to mention during the writing sample that the inks I use for Kaweco Palm Green, Lamy Turquoise, and Monteverde Fire Opal. These are all three inks that I feel have very middle-of-the-road qualities, and I thought this would make a good comparison between these pens. Although, for most of them, I used Lamy Blue. Now, the takeaway I would make is that for an absolute beginner, I would not recommend these Kaweco Sports because I have had hard starting and baby's bottom on both of these, which I feel might be really aggravating from a person who just wants to write with their pen and doesn't really understand why this is happening yet. Pilot Metropolitan also left me feeling a little strange because I've had two of these and they've also had issues. It's just something I find odd because usually Pilot has very good quality control. I don't know if that would keep me from recommending this pen for a beginner, but it certainly does add a little bit of doubt. All of these three Lamys have no issues writing. And the Loom is also a pretty safe bet as well. Although the Preppy is a very good pen, I don't know if I would recommend it for a first pen because it does not come with a converter, first of all, which a lot of these pens actually don't. But it's also rather hard to clean this feed mechanism because it has this capturing thing and also a regular feed. And it just gets ink stuck everywhere sometimes, which is a shame. I hope you found this video useful, and I'll see you next time for another episode of Practical Penmanship.